some of the best of Britain. The million people who've signed up on Facebook to support the police. Communities coming together in the clean-up operations. But there is absolutely no room for complacency, and there is much more to be done.
He promised more robust policing, using water cannon and rubber bullets if they prove necessary.
There are pockets of our society that are not just broken, but frankly sick. When we see children as young as 12 and 13 looting and laughing, when we see the display of an injured young man with people pretending to help him while they are robbing him, it is clear there are things that are badly wrong in our society.
He did not, though, risk walking through a city on edge, where groups of youths kill at the first sign of trouble. Wolverhampton tonight is a city that is still living in fear. Arrests on the street and meantime shops that have closed early in order to avoid another night which people fear might bring more trouble. The Labour leader Ed Miliband did take to the streets of Manchester. For now, at least, political leaders are speaking with one voice about what's gone wrong.
We must not have a situation where there are people who think it is okay to go out and commit the kinds of acts we have seen. I do not want my kids to grow up in a country where people think that's an okay thing to do, and all of us have a responsibility to make sure we don't see these kind of events repeated.
What?
Back in Wolverhampton, they're preparing for the worst tonight. Businesses have closed early or boarded themselves up. Police have been bussed in. People are staying home. Except those who roam the streets.
I'm not going.
Nick Robinson, BBC News, Wolverhampton.
Well, some magistrates' courts in London have been sitting through the night to process some of the hundreds of people charged in connection with the riots in the capital. Are the powers of a magistrate, though, sufficient to deal with some of these crimes? Well, Richard Monkhouse has been a magistrate on the Trafford bench for 13 years and joins us now from our Manchester studio, where, as we were hearing from Judith Wallace a moment ago, courts are sitting there this evening as well. Good evening to you. Thank you for joining us.
Good evening. Thank you.
Apart from those hours that I've referred to, is anything else different in the way magistrates are able to approach these cases?
Not really. The whole principle is what a CPS going to charge each individual with. We have a process, we have sentencing processes, guidelines that we would adopt. We would look at any aggravating features. Things like violence make an offence like theft more serious. Things like gang-related activity make it more serious. But as far as we're concerned, I think it's just business as usual, maybe a little bit more of it.
And nothing has come from above to say that you should get tougher than you would otherwise be in these cases?
Well, nothing can come from above. Sentencing Council lays down guidelines, and each magistrate, or each bench of magistrates, when they address a particular case, would take that case on its own merits, would sentence according to their guidelines and according to the information they have about the offender, the information they have about the offence. And I don't think there's really any change there.
Remind us then in that case of the limits that you have. What's the toughest sentence that magistrates can pass to anybody?
For an adult, we can imprison somebody for 6 months. For a youth, somebody under 18, we can imprison for up to 2 years. Half of that is spent in a Young Offender Institute, half of it is spent on licence afterwards, dealing with issues, dealing with their problems through the Youth Offending Service.
You also have obviously options involving community service as well.
The full range of community options are given to us, and we can sentence for up to something like 300 hours unpaid work. We can give long community orders that might address particular behaviour. I suspect that in these sorts of cases we're looking at punishment as the main objective, but it's only one of the 5 objectives we have when we sentence.
When it comes to the youths and the limitations you have there, what about the parents of the youths? What options do you have with them?
Well, a youth under 16 would be expected to have a responsible adult with them. We would hope it was their parent, it could be a grandparent, it could be a member of their family. And one of the problems in youth courts across the country is that that often doesn't happen. And I think that may be something to do with what's going on the streets over the last few days.
And presumably you cannot compel that to happen. You cannot require these people to be there.
Yes, we can. We can adjourn and expect a parent to come, because when you're sentencing a young person, what you're doing is if you want to try and fine a young person, somebody who say 15, who is at school or supposedly at school, who has no earning, it's difficult to fine them, but we can fine their parents. But we can only fine their parents if they're in court. So we need to adjourn to get them in court. We can then offer things like parenting orders, which assist parents with how to deal with kids, and sometimes they're very grateful about this.
Grateful because, well, in your experience, are those parenting orders quite often effective?
Yes, we would only use them if the Youth Offending Service really indicated that they were having problems on their own with dealing with young people and with the families of young people. So we take the guide from the Youth Offending Service or Youth Offending team in our local area, who would say, we don't think in this circumstance a parenting order is appropriate, or in this circumstance we do think a parenting order is appropriate. So there's all sorts of options. So with young people, yes, we could imprison for up to 2 years, but with adults we can only imprison for up to 6 months. The 2003 Criminal Justice Act did actually introduce the possibility that we could imprison up to 12 months, but it was never implemented. In fact, the new sentencing bill is actually looking to repeal that. And we think in circumstances like those that are going on today, it actually might have been useful to have those powers for magistrates or magistrates' courts to sentence to custody for a longer period.
Just a final thought on the picture that we are facing over the last sort of 4 or 5 days. You, as a JP with some experience, and your fellow JPs know that you are going to be under a little bit more scrutiny, a bit more spotlight than you would normally be because of what happened in various cities around the country. Are you conscious of that? Will it influence you at all in how you carry out your duties?
I have every faith in the magistrates in this country. I think they will do the right thing. We are well trained, we have processes to follow, and I think the difficulty is when we start going outside those processes and actually saying, well, these circumstances are different. No, they're not. These are criminal offences. They are treated in exactly the same way as we would treat any other criminal offence. We'd look at aggravation, we'd look at the history of the offender, and we would sentence appropriately. And I have every faith in the magistrates in this country.
Richard Monkhouse, thank you very much for talking to us.
Thank you.